here with my lovely mother.
Hi, I'm Janette.
And at this point, it was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that I ran the Princess Half Marathon in Walt Disney World. So today we're just going to recap basically the experience of the Princess Half Marathon, both from my perspective as a runner and my mom's perspective as, I don't know, a spectator, I suppose.
A spectator.
All right. And then also for this, in the next few episodes as well, we're also, after we did the Princess Half Marathon, we stayed in Disney for a few days. And then we also went to Universal for a few days as well. So the next episode is going to be our recap of our Disney trip in general. And then we'll also do a separate episode all about Universal. So more episodes to come, but this one is just on the Princess Half Marathon. So, all right, so let's talk about first when I signed up. I signed up on July 30th, 2024. I honestly completely forgot to register. I totally forgot it was that day to register until I saw people on Instagram saying how they were in the queue to register, like the virtual queue. And then I went on, and I kid you not, the race was sold out. All of the races were sold out. The challenge medal was sold out. The 5K was sold out. The 10K was sold out. And it said the Princess Half Marathon was not yet sold out, but literally everything else was sold out. That I was like, 5,000 spot in line. I was just like in tears. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get this spot. And then I literally messaged my fiance. I was just like, I can't believe I messed up. It's like, I had a reminder about this day to like sign up, all this stuff. Suddenly the little thing jumped ahead and I went through. I waited maybe 20 minutes in the queue. I went through all the things. I clicked as quickly as I possibly could, didn't put any information and just clicked to the end to basically when you pay. And then I somehow got a bib. And I'm like, well, I guess all of that worrying and crying for 20 minutes and I got a bib. But legit, everything was sold out. So I would definitely say if you want to run one of the RunDisney races, definitely make sure you have your reminder set up in time so that you get into those virtual queues early, especially I think if you want to do the 5Ks or the 10Ks or the challenge races, because I think those ones sell out first.
Well, they sell out first because I think it's like everybody else. People are going there to have a good time.
Yeah.
And they don't really want to run the race.
Yeah.
They want to have a good time.
Like a 5K. So like a 5K is 3 miles. And like, I'm not saying 3 miles is not a lot to run, but you have a lot of time to run the 3 miles.
I got to tell you though, I mean, even just being in Disney and seeing the people in Disney with all the paraphernalia on, 98% of the people wearing those t-shirts that said they did the 5K and 10K did not look like runners to me.
Well, because a lot of people can walk those. Because again, that's what I'm saying. You have a lot of time.
That's why I think they sell out faster.
Yes. Yeah, because you can. So for the most part, for all Disney races, usually you have to be able to do at least a 16-minute walk, which for most people is kind of like a power walk. It's like a power walk. However, the only thing with Disney is that if you're stopping to take photos, if you're stopping to take videos with your friends, if you're stopping to do castle photos, anything like that, or like things in Epcot, that's going to eat at your time. If you're waiting in line to take a photo, it's going to eat at your time. So even if you could do a 16-minute walk, if you stop for anything else, then or like stop to get a drink or stop to go to the bathroom, then suddenly you're eating up your time. Right. So that's my only thing to register to note about that. But I paid $246 to register. So these races are not inexpensive. I would say for a half marathon, that is quite expensive. For reference, I would say other half marathons I've done normally are in like the $80 range.
Oh, wow. That is a big difference.
Yeah. So most half marathons I've done are in the $80 range. I think one of the rock and roll marathons I did was over 100, like maybe 110 or something like that. But those ones always have live bands that play. So it's again, you get what you pay for, so to speak. But I will say $246, I do think you get a lot at the Disney races. So for instance, you get all these character meet and greets. You get a lot of opportunities, like on the race course itself to take photos, like within the parks itself. That I would say Disney does really well with like porta potties along the race, does really well with like your hydration. So like they have water stations, they have Gatorade, they have like, hydrating gels and stuff like that along the way. And I'll say I think the lowest priced marathon I've run, because marathons are almost always more expensive than half marathons. That's what I'm saying. For half marathons, it's very expensive. But my lowest priced full marathon was the Niagara Falls Marathon. And so a full 26 miles, and there was not a porta potty in sight. Let me tell you, it's like, it was not very expensive to run. I think that one was maybe around $150 or something like that for that marathon.
Because they didn't do anything. They
and
just put you on the course.
Yeah, you could tell that it's like, oh, there's nothing on this race. Like there's truly nothing on that race.
There was nothing for the spectators either.
People were peeing in other people's front lawns. That's how, like men and women, like everyone just peeing where they could because there was no porta potties on the race. I think it was like, because you run 13 miles out and 13 miles back on the same track. I think there was maybe like porta potties beginning, porta potties around mile 13, and then like one around mile 7, and like, on the other side. Like that was it. So, so like I do think you get a lot for Disney races, even though they are very expensive. And of course, I think in general, since Disney's just always expensive. So I just keep that in mind as well. But
it's the experience.
Yeah, it's experience you're going for if you choose to do this. So for this race, I didn't know the theming before I picked my costume, but I already knew what I wanted to do. So I bought an Army Mulan top from Dream It by YLW on Etsy for $39. And I also got these black wristbands and like a green hair tie on Amazon. They were pretty inexpensive. I don't remember how much they were. And I already had like black shorts that I had just from in a general sense, like being a runner and having shorts. So the main thing I really bought was the Mulan top. And I knew knew I wanted to dress up as Army Mulan. I kind of went back and forth on my costume of what I wanted to do, but that was what we ended up doing. And then the theming came out. Theming for the 5K was Mulan. The theming for the 10K was Jasmine. The half marathon was Aurora, and the challenge race, which is just the 10K and the half marathon, was Snow White. What was fun about this race was that they did the main princess and whoever like her villain is, so to speak. So for Mulan, it was Mulan and the Huns. Jasmine was Jasmine and Jafar. Aurora was Aurora and Maleficent, and then Snow White was Snow White and the Evil Queen. Okay. So I did think that was pretty cool overall that they had like the villains kind of involved too. So a lot of people did both. So because I was running the half marathon, a lot of people did dress up from characters from Sleeping Beauty or from Snow White because you're either doing the challenge or the half. Right. So there weren't that many other girls dressed up as Mulan, if I'm being honest, or other characters, because everyone would have done it for the 5K, which I didn't do. Okay. So a lot of people used their costumes for the 5K and because Mulan was hosting that one. But I was like one of the few Mulans I think running during
I didn't see many
marathon.
Mulans.
So there were a few. I think I saw 2 others, but otherwise I saw a lot of Sleeping Beauty characters as well. So, all right, so let's talk about the expo. The expo is always at the ESPN Worldwide Sports Complex. I went on Saturday, February 22nd. This was the 3rd day of the expo, meaning it was the last day of the expo. So I always note that if you're going on the last day of the expo, the merchandise is always pretty picked over at that point. You can purchase merchandise earlier, like when you register, for your bib and stuff like that. I have never done that before. I think in the future, I probably should do that because I always go on the last day.
Right, everything's gone.
Yeah, especially because I'm probably not going to do the 5K and the 10K in the future. Right. Like I'm probably only going to do the big races. So I might as well do that, but I did not. So a lot of things are picked over. I literally got off the plane with my suitcase and went right to the expo, which does suck. I would not necessarily recommend that, mainly because there are a lot of stairs that you need to go up and down at this expo. Oh, and I knew that.
I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, this is my 3rd time doing a RunDisney event, and I remembered that from the last 2 times as well, that there's a lot of stairs you have to go up and down. But I was like, well, there has to be an elevator somewhere. These places have to be accessible. Couldn't find the elevators, so I just
lugged runners. They don't care.
Yeah, I just
lugged down the stairs.
But it's a sports complex. It's like, I don't know, like there's disabled athletes.
I know there should be disabled something.
I'm sure there were elevators somewhere. They just weren't clearly marked, and I couldn't find them all. So I just lugged my suitcase up and down multiple flights of stairs, not just 1 or 2, multiple flights of stairs. Let me tell you, multiple flights of stairs. It was honestly very tiring.
So the next time you have to come in the day before.
Yeah, or like go to your hotel first and then take the shuttle maybe to the expo. I don't know. Or like have someone, a family member, like wait for you outside with your suitcase so you can go run around and get all your stuff and then not have to lug your stuff around with you. But I was there by myself with my suitcase, lugging it up and down these stairs. We'll have to plan better
next time.
I will say the parts, so you go to the first building, it's very clearly laid out, I would say overall, like where it says to get your bib. Once you get your bib, there's lots of people around to ask questions if you don't know where to go. But they kind of set up, you have to go to these 3 buildings. You go to the first building, get your bib, you go to the second building, and that's like the main expo area, I would say. That's where you get your t-shirt, that's included in your registration. And they also usually give you little pins there as well. And then they have all the vendors, like all the general running vendors. So
I
like
remember that from the first time.
Yeah, all the general stuff. And I spent a lot of time there actually because I was looking for some sunglasses in like a color that I specifically wanted. Didn't find them, but I had a lot of fun looking. And that was actually quite crowded. That area was the most crowded. And it was hard because I had my suitcase again. So I was trying to me and my suitcase on this rug, like lugging around and like I'm in the way of everyone. It's like, well, it is what it is. And then you go to the final building, which is the Disney merchandise. And that's where they have like lots of photo opportunities. So characters were there. And again, a lot of the main characters that you see are like different characters. Like I think Moana was there at some point. And they have lots of like big things. Like they had this big magic mirror that you could take a photo in front of for like the Snow White, type
Snow
thing.
White theme, right.
Especially too, because the new live action Snow White was coming out a month after this race. So a lot of stuff for Snow White was there. So it was pretty cool. I walked around, didn't find anything that I really wanted. I will say I'm very picky on the material that I wear when I run. So all of the race material, clothing items were materials I didn't like. Like I knew I would not be comfortable wearing that. So I didn't buy any of it. So it was one of those things where I think if Mulan was hosting the half marathon, I probably would have bought something even if it wasn't my favorite material. But I'm not a big Sleeping Beauty fan and I'm not a big Snow White fan. So nothing really stuck out to me. And all of the official like Princess Half Marathon race jackets were sold out. I didn't see any of them there. So I didn't get a jacket. The only thing I bought was a pin. So I bought like one of the enamel pins that was like, you did it type of things for the Princess Half Marathon with Aurora on it. And that was the only thing I purchased. I think it was like $20 or something like that. You do get discount if you have any discounts for an annual pass holder DVC. And then I took the shuttle from the expo there to the Contemporary Resort. We were staying at Bay Lake Towers. So the shuttle itself, they make a few stops, but then when we got to the Contemporary, they dropped me off in like the middle of nowhere. Like they do not drop you off where like the bus expo is. They drop you off like all the way to the corner in front of the hotel. And I'm like, and then more stairs. Let me tell you, there were another little stairs. It's in the vlog, actually.
Can't believe you had to do that.
Yeah, it dropped me off at like the middle of nowhere. I'm like, where am I? Just like, why are we like so far away from the hotel? Plus, I wasn't going to the hotel. I was going to Bay Lake Towers, so I was even further away. I mean, like not the shuttle smart. They didn't know I was staying at Bay Lake Towers, but I was like, I got to go even further to get to Bay Lake Towers.
Excuse me, I'm all the way over there.
I know.
Could you drop me off on your way out?
Because at this point, I was so tired. And also, this is nothing against to the woman who drove the shuttle or anything like that, but she saw me come to the shuttle with my suitcase and she didn't offer to open like the bottom part of it. So I just took my suitcase up the steps with me, you know, those narrow little coach steps, and just had the suitcase with me. Then another family came in, they had a stroller, and she was like, oh, let me open up the thing so you don't have to bring the stroller up. And I kind of sat there with my suitcase being like, how come she couldn't have done that for me? Like I lugged this suitcase up more steps and then back down those little narrow steps. She was like, oh, just take your time. And I was like, okay. And again, I don't know. It's like, I didn't ask, so maybe I should have asked.
That's what you should have said. Why didn't you put this under the thing for me?
But I did low-key think of that. I was just like, how come she did that for those people and I didn't have that option?
Oh, God.
So a full like hour or so of lugging my suitcase around, finally made it to Bay Lake. Our room was not ready, so we actually checked our bags. That's why I had to go to Bay Lake first, because we checked our bags at Bay Lake. So we ended up going to Disney Springs for dinner. We went to Summer House on the lake in Disney Springs, and then we came back, and I went to dinner. I went to bed around 9 p.m., I would say. We got back, I guess, around 7 or 8 p.m. is when we got back from dinner. And then at 9 p.m. is when I went to dinner. I had just some spaghetti with some red sauce. Earlier that day, we also had the artichoke, and I also had mushroom soup. So I actually ate a lot at that dinner.
Right, we had guacamole and chips too.
Oh, we had the guacamole.
We were waiting for Ted because he was in traffic.
Yeah, my fiance was driving down.
We ordered a lot of appetizers.
I know. So we had a lot of food that day, and then so we went to bed. I went to bed around 9 p.m. I woke up at 10 p.m. because the electrical parade that's when the electrical parade does the Contemporary Resort, and it was so loud. It was blasting, and I think the wind made it worse. You know, like when the wind moves sound, it was so loud. Every single time we're going to talk about, like when we go to bed, we all woke up at 10 p.m. for the electrical parade music. But all right, let's get to the race days. Now we are on the race day. So before the race was on Sunday, February 23rd. The race started at 5 a.m. in the Epcot parking lot. When you are at Bay Lake Towers or any other of the Magic Kingdom resorts, you are required to take the monorails to the race start. There are no bus options. Even when I took the shuttle from the expo, she did make an announcement saying that when we're getting Contemporary, that there will be no bus options, that you have to take the monorail. It's your only option, essentially. I guess I don't know if you could take an Uber. I have no idea.
I would think that's the fastest way, though, because the buses, remember the last time the buses got stuck?
I would think so, too. Yeah.
I had to delay some stuff because the buses got stuck.
Yeah, I would assume so as well, but that's kind of why I like staying at a Magic Kingdom resort for RunDisney, because I do think the monorail is very convenient.
Yeah,
so
there's no traffic.
Yeah, so it's very convenient to take the monorail. So again, no bus options though. So Bay Lake Towers is currently being renovated during, like, you know, when we were doing this, and I think even right now as we're recording. So the Skywalker Bridge was closed, so you just kind of had to go down and like around, basically. Not the worst thing in the world, but it was just like a little inconvenient.
You had to go outside, right?
Yeah, but there are plenty of signs telling you like where to go for the RunDisney transportation. Like so many signs are around, so it should be obvious, I should say. Like you just follow the signs to get to where you're going, and if you get really lost, even at 3 a.m. there were other people like walking around, so you can always ask someone. So my alarm clock went off at 3 a.m. and then I actually got out of bed at 3:15, and by 3:40 I was out the door and on my way to the monorail. The monorail runs pretty frequently, I would say, so by 3:50 I was already at the Ticket and Transportation Center, although again Contemporary is like the next stop anyway, so I literally we got off at the next stop. Yes, so I got to the Ticket and Transportation Center, and then there were a lot of people getting onto the monorail, you know, so from the Epcot one, a lot of people getting onto the resort monorail. And what I realized is that even at this time at 3:40 in the morning, a lot of people who are just going to be spectators can get into Magic Kingdom to be the spectators on Main Street.
Oh, you can?
So I realized, it has to
wow.
stop at Magic Kingdom, because a lot of people are probably actually getting off to be the spectators on Main Street. And so I don't know how you become a spectator in Main Street. I will be honest. I don't know if there's a special ticket you have to purchase or something that you need to do.
I didn't think the park was open, right?
So yeah, but I knew people were on Main Street because I've run the races and I've seen people on Main Street before. I just didn't know how early they could get onto Main Street. I think it's my thing. So I didn't realize that you could get at, at 3.
I don't check that next time.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if the park wasn't open yet and they would just be waiting in the front or something like that until they opened the park. But yeah, 3-4 in the morning, people were going to Magic Kingdom to wait to get onto Main Street to get their spot on Main Street. So pretty interesting, honestly, overall. So all right, by 3:58, the Epcot monorail arrived, and now we're getting 5 a.m. Remember, is when the race starts, so about an hour before race starts. So this is normally where I would take my pre-snack or my pre-fuel, and I completely forgot to bring my pre-fuel with me from home. So when I was in the airport, I had bought these Pop-Tart bites, and I was like, well, it's close enough. I've eaten Pop-Tarts before a race before. Although low-key before this race, I hadn't really been training with Pop-Tarts. I've been training with other stuff, but I was like, well, I have nothing, so I'll just buy these Pop-Tart bites. And they were horrible. They were absolutely disgusting. They were so bad. They were like the cinnamon roll Pop-Tart bites. Horrible. I only ate a few of them, and I was just like, these taste so bad. I threw the bag out. I was just like, well, I don't need this. I'll be fine. So by 4:10, we arrived at Epcot, and I started the walk to the start line. Now, I am someone who does not usually look up the course map before a race. I know that's not very smart. Most people, I would say you should look up the course map and the elevation map. I never do. So I didn't know where the starting line was. And the starting line was right there in the parking lot of Epcot. So you didn't really have far to go. So but again, 4:10, I arrived there, and by 4:30, I was in my corral. So like only 20 minutes later. In the past, they've had the races start like on the road. So you kind of like walk through the parking lot, sort of out, kind of behind Epcot. and then onto the road itself, which is a much longer walk. Like sometimes you're walking almost like a mile just to get to the starting line. So I wonder if they wanted to eliminate that mile and have people start in the Epcot parking lot itself. I'm not really sure what it may be. But yeah, but the starting line was right there, which is pretty nice. 4:30. I was in Corral A for the start of the race. The Disney races are the only races I'm ever in like the first corral for anything. I'm not really a fast runner, honestly. You will see when we get to my times. I'm not a fast runner, that's for sure. But for Disney, I'm always, in Corral A. It makes you feel very elite, though, I will say. You're just like, wow, look how fancy I am in the first corral. But so 4:30, I was there. The first Disney race, so I just want to note too, so again, I was only there a half hour before the race starts. The first time I did my first marathon back in 2020, I got into my corral like 90 minutes before the race started. So I sat there, I remember, for like an hour and a half. And I quickly realized as I was sitting there was literally no reason for me to be sitting here by myself for 90 minutes. So now I try to plan it to get to the race kind of as close to the starting time without being like too late, so to speak, you know? Right. So, and that's just for me. I know a lot of other people, if you're driving, you're with your other friends or something like that, like there's other reasons why maybe you want to get there super early or to hang out or like make a whole, morning of it and stuff like that, whatever it may be. But for me, I was like, yeah, I definitely am not going to do that. So, although I will say, if you are in one of the first few corrals, the race does start on time. So Wheels Disney starts at 4:58, and then the elite runners went at 4:59, and then the official Corral A started right at 5 a.m. So if you're not in the Corral A at 5 a.m. and you're in that corral and you're running late, you're not going to make it. You're going to have to run with Corral B or Corral C. So just to note that, and I think there's like 2 minutes between each corral or something like that. I'm not really sure because I was already running. You can hear it. Like once you start running, you can hear the next corral go. And then I never heard another corral personally. Like I didn't hear C or D go. That far up. Yeah, I was too far to hear the rest ones, but I did hear B go. All right, so the race starts. So races always start off pretty fast, especially when you're in the first corral with people who actually are real runners. Like they are actually going to be running fast, and I'm like, I'm just a poser. I'm not real. I'm a fake runner here. Don't know how I made it into Corral A. So my first mile split is 11:36. As you can tell, not very fast. However, this was because at the half mile mark was your first character. When I got to the first character, I saw the line first, and I was just like, wow, that's actually a really long line. Again, I'm in the first corral, and there was already a long line for the first character. So I was like, well, I can just skip the first character. It's fine. I ran past the character and realized it was Mulan, and I was like, God damn it, I obviously have to stop. I'm dressed up as Mulan. I had to turn around, went all the way back to the end of the line, and then I had to wait on that long line. And I was just surprised. I was like, wow, I don't remember there being long lines the last time I did this. And in my head, I was like, maybe I was in like, I guess last time I was more in like the front of Corral A rather than maybe this time I was in like the middle of Corral A.
Right, so there were still a lot of people on the front.
Yeah, like there's still a lot of people in front of you when when you're running even in the first corral. So yes, I think a lot of people did stop. But yeah, it stopped, turned around. So still within mile run, the second character was Moana. Moana did also have a long line as well. So, and she's the only one I'm sad.
So that's the reason to get there 90 minutes before the corral goes off, so that you're all the way in the front.
Well, I could have pushed my way up if I wanted to. Lots of people do that. I didn't even think about it. And as I was running, I realized like, oh, I should have probably tried to get closer to the front. But I was like, it's fine. It's no big deal. Yeah, but I didn't get a photo with Moana. She was also within mile one, and she's the only one I'm kind of sad I didn't get a photo with. And then there was also the three fairies from Sleeping Beauty, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, and I skipped them as well. Now we are into mile two. Mile two, I technically didn't do any characters with, so my mile two split was 9:32. It was much faster because I didn't do anything. So I just want to note that for the mile markers is actually like the mile previous, remember? So it's just like you're always like the like my split for mile 9:32 is like the mile before is technically what it is. So it's kind of hard to explain how running splits work. But all right, so in mile two, I saw Goofy dressed in a Mardi Gras outfit. I did see Mushu, and Mushu had a long line, but I did stop for Mushu because again, I was dressed as Mulan, so I wanted a photo with Mushu. I also saw Mirabelle and Bruno, and they did not have a very long line for some reason, so I decided to stop for them because I was like, well, they don't really have a long line, so I might as well. And then on the other side of the highway, I saw Merida, because again, you're on the highway at this point running towards Magic Kingdom, so you're going to loop back around eventually once you're done with Magic Kingdom. So Merida was on the other side, which was actually pretty cool because she was just standing there waving at us as we ran by, just like waiting for people to come around, which would have been a while, honestly, because it's still the start of the race. And then now we're in mile three. My split for mile three was 12:34. I saw Daisy dressed as a princess and Donald dressed as a knight, and I did not stop for either of them. By mile four, I was running a 9:57 split. This is where you're passing the Polynesian and the Grand Floridian. So this race went, in races past, I feel like we went to like the Contemporary and Bay Lake first, and then you went into Magic Kingdom.
We were down there that time.
Yeah, and did Grand Floridian and Polynesian afterwards. This time we did Grand Floridian and Polynesian first, and then you after Magic Kingdom, then you did Contemporary. Right. So it was interesting because right now Polynesian is building the new tower. I forget what the tower is called off the top of my head right now, but the new Polynesian tower, whatever, the DVC tower that they're building. So there's a lot of construction in that area. And at this time, it was still only like, maybe 5:40 in the morning or something like that. So it was quite dark, honestly. And there were no lights along this road. Like there were very few lights, but because of all the construction, the road was very uneven. Like, sometimes when they put down like extra asphalt or something like that to like smooth things out for the roads. They had done that, but it was very uneven. That was a thing. And everyone was tripping. Literally everyone around me was saying like, it is way too dark and we were all tripping on this road. And I get that it's like we were the earlier runners. So like we're the earlier crowds, like we're running maybe a little faster.
But they should have taken that into consideration.
Yeah, it's like there should have been
at 5 o'clock
more.
It's dark.
Yeah, like there should have been more lights, I feel like, in that area because it was so dark and we were all tripping. And like it was very strange, honestly. I was like kind of surprised. Then finally we got to Grand Floridian. There was a little bit more lights around Grand Floridian. And once we got there, that is when I saw Vanellope with the car. I did stop for the Vanellope because she didn't have a very long line. Sorry to Vanellope, but she had the cool car though, and I really wanted a photo with that. So I did stop for her. And then this is when you come around to the walkway from the Grand Floridian to the Magic Kingdom, which I will say is pretty cool because overall that walkway is still fairly new. Overall, it's only a few years old and I had never been on it before. So it was really cool on that walkway. It's super pretty. That is full of lights every like foot, honestly.
Well, that's because they have people walking back and forth from the park.
Yeah, it's a public walkway. So it's like lights every foot. It was so pretty. And when we came around the bend, in the lake was the electrical parade. So the music was not on, but they had all the electrical parade, you know, like little lights on. And that was so cool to see them all lit up at this point because it was still, again, it was only 5:50 in the morning at this point, and so it's still very dark. Oh. However, I did see in other people's posts that when the sun did come up, they did turn them off and then they did put them away. So if you're not in one of those earlier corrals, I don't think you would see the electrical parade. You have to be in the earlier corrals when it's still dark out when you're passing it. But it was exciting for me when I saw it, especially because it's like I've heard the music so many times, but we never go out and see it because I get so annoyed at 10 p.m. when I'm listening to that music. I have no want to look at it.
We used to see it when you were a kid. We used to sit on the balcony and watch.
Well, it's funny because Ted watched it one of the nights when we were there and he came in and he was just like, what was that? He was like, that was like the most like 80s thing you could ever imagine in your life.
People love it, so they keep it.
It was like, that is such a wild thing to see. But he was like, the storyline didn't even make sense. He was just like, what is this story? And I'm like, I think it's just some fun like techno music and some lights.
Some fun floats.
It's not supposed to be too crazy.
There's no storyline.
But it was cool to see some of those floats. I think the octopus one is my favorite. I love the octopus. All right, now we're at mile 5. My mile 5 split was 10:17. Mile 5 is right before you get to Magic Kingdom. And then as you get to Magic Kingdom, you kind of run underneath the train and everything. And then you're running down Main Street. I do think running down Main Street is like the most magical thing you could ever feel in your entire life. And again, you see all these people along like the left side of Main Street. So again, they all got there somehow.
Yeah, so, I never even knew they were in there.
Yeah, again, I know it's like an option. I just don't know how it is. And it's funny because when I told Ted about that later, he was just like, wait, like I didn't know I could do that. He's like,
yeah, we would have did that.
He's like, I would have met you on Main Street.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, I think you may have to pay for it. It's the only thing. So I don't know though.
Yeah, I wouldn't pay for it because then we have to come out and go back to Epcot.
Yeah. It's still a trek to like get over there, you know, make sure you're in position, and it's still early. So it's like
it's early. You just have to walk a little bit further to get to the front gate.
Yeah, you'd have to get up earlier to get over there. But yeah, so now we're in Main Street. When we got to the end of Main Street, Mickey and Minnie were in like a cavalcade type float, and there was no photographer there. You just could take like a selfie with them. So I took like a little video selfie with them. Everyone was taking selfies with them, so it was normal. And it's funny, when I happened to go by them, there was like no one around me. So it wasn't like I was waiting for someone to take a selfie or video. Like there just happened to be no one was around me. So I got this really great video with the two of them. So then we head into Adventureland first. So you run through Adventureland, and then I actually saw Jasmine and Aladdin right in front of the Magic Carpet ride. They had the Magic Carpet ride also on as well. Like I was going in this little circle. So when you took the photo, like the carpets were like kind of up, so to speak. That was pretty cool. Then you start to run towards Frontierland. I will say it is very dark in this part of the park, and there are cast members who are kind of saying like, be careful because it's dark. Like they're not blasting lights and throughout the park or anything like that. And I will say too, the floor was wet as well, because you know how at night they clean the floors,
clean everything off.
So the floor was
damp in Florida.
Yeah, so the floor was a little bit wet. So there were cast members who were saying like the floor is wet and damp, like just be careful type of thing. I felt fine. I didn't feel like I was slipping or sliding anything at all, and it was still brighter than it was on that road by the Polynesian. So honestly, it really wasn't that bad in comparison to what we've already gone through on the Polynesian road. So then you get to Frontierland, and right before Tiana's Bayou Adventure, Naveen was there. I do think Naveen and Tiana were switching out though, like the cast members themselves were switching out. So I saw Naveen, which was fun. Then you run through Liberty Square over to Fantasyland, and then Wendy was right outside of the meet and greet for Peter Pan's flight. So I saw Wendy there. And I wanted it too, for all these characters in the park, no line. It was like I got into the park and there was not a single line for any of the characters. I have no idea why, because before this, there were long lines for everyone. Once I got into the park, not like a single line, or maybe like 3 people or 4 people in front of me, like a very short line that was very easy to wait in. So I thought that was kind of interesting. You hit mile 6 right in front of Mickey's PhilharMagic. My mile 6 split was 11:11, make a wish. And then I saw Cinderella in front of the Princess Fairy Tale Hall. The sign that the cast member was holding did say Cinderella or Rapunzel, so I'm assuming again they were switching out during the race. So I got to see Cinderella. It was a little chilly that morning. It's funny because it was chilly, but it was still very humid. So it's like you could still see your breath, which was really funny, but it was so humid that it's like I was covered in sweat. And so the Cinderella, I remember she was like fully bundled up though. Like she was wearing like a long sleeve and everything.
She was just standing there.
As I was saying, for her, she was just staying there. So it was probably chilly for her. But for us, it's like I'm sweating. So then, of course, you get to run through the castle, you run down the castle, and then you can get your castle photo. They always have lots of photo ops for the castle photos. So I think there was like 8 photographers there. You just run in front of one of them, they take one photo, and then you keep running, and that's it. So, all right. So then you're going through Tomorrowland. I didn't see any characters in Tomorrowland. I'm not sure if there were characters in Tomorrowland. I just like missed someone or something like that, but I didn't see any characters in Tomorrowland myself. And then you kind of go through the back entrance sort of, and it takes you right to the street. So you don't go back towards like Main Street, anything like that. You immediately just like leave Magic Kingdom through a back entrance, and then you're like on the road. Like you're on the road sort of like behind Tomorrowland, so to speak. So, and then at this point, this is where I saw my family in front of the Contemporary Resort. So this was funny because at the Polynesian Grand Floridium, the guests at those resorts could be right by the course itself. So they were all right up by the course.
They were not letting us near.
At the Contemporary, they don't allow you to do that. And I wonder if it's because it's like too dark or something like that. They don't want people
we had to
crossing
walk across some grass to get where we had to go.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That it's like I could guess the other ones are just they're closer up to the road, so it's easier for them to let them stay. And there's way more lights. Where in that section of the course, there's no lights. It's very dark over there.
Well, you're really far from we were really far from the hotel at that point. Yeah. It was a long walk down to where
that's
you
what I'm saying.
To the
where
road.
You were standing, that's where that shuttle dropped me off from the expo.
You're down all the way at that road, and it was dark. They did have a policeman
They
there.
did have a security person.
Yeah,
I remember that too from the last time I did
she
that.
kept yelling at everybody because the family members were coming over to say hello, and she kept telling them, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that.
I wonder if like when the sun comes up more, if like it's not as discouraged to do that because then it's not
they let more people.
Yeah, it's not as much of a safety hazard because I'm jumping over the median of the road, right? So it's like there's a little concrete between the two sides of the roads. I have to jump over that to make my way over to my family and then go back. So I realize it's a tripping hazard in the dark because there's no lights in that area. So I understand why it's discouraged, but at the same time, I'm just like, why don't we just run on that side of the road? But I'm like, I don't know, whatever. So anyway, I did go over and say hi to them because it's like that's the whole point. It's like they all got up at what time was like when I saw you? It was already like 6 a.m. when I saw you.
It was
so
early.
It was pretty early.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I saw them 6 a.m. and then they went back and got ready and then they were going to meet me at the finish line. And then now we are at mile 7 right after the Contemporary. Mile 7 was 12:16 my split. This is where you saw Beauty and the Beast both. They had no line at all. And again, after the castle, all of the characters had no line suddenly. Again, maybe like 3 people in front of me, maybe 4 people, maybe 5 at the most or something like that. But for the most part, there was no lines.
People were getting tired. They just wanted to finish.
Yeah. And I wonder too, again, like in the beginning, there was just that big rush to take photos of characters. So everyone stopped at once. Whereas later on, people aren't stopping as much or, they're skipping characters and they just like want to be done with the race or something like that.
That's what I mean. They're probably getting tired and saying, you know what, I got pictures. Now I just want to finish.
Yes. And this is also, again, right by the Ticketing Transportation Center. It's funny because there's this throughout the course, sometimes the road or the course itself will narrow a little bit. So they'll have an announcement that says like course narrows ahead, course narrows ahead. And let me tell you, when I got onto the monorail at 3:40 in the morning, whenever I got on the monorail, that announcement was already going, which means if you were working at the Ticketing Transportation Center for the monorail, you were listening to hours. Course narrows ahead for hours. And like, that is actually wild if you think about it. Like, that sucks. And low key, there were other parts in the course where it narrowed and there were no announcements. So I'm just like, the course isn't even narrowing that much. And it's like the hardest part isn't when the course narrows, is when you have like a really sharp turn, which normally they would have cast members that says like sharp left turn or a sharp right turn. Because those ones to me, I find to be trickier. Again, I do realize I'm saying this with privilege where I'm not running when there's like a lot of crowds around me. So I'm assuming if there were a lot of crowds, it would be much harder to get through those narrow things.
To go that way, right?
Or turning through like a narrow or turning through a sharp turn or something like that. But again, when you run a little bit sooner, you don't really have as many of those problems. But yeah, and also making sharp turns when you run is kind of hard on the knees sometimes. So I mean, like I feel like also why you may need the announcements. So again, we run through the Ticketing Transportation Center, and then I saw Princess Ada from It's a Bug's Life. I honestly had no idea what her name was when I saw her. I just couldn't remember. I just knew she was from It's a Bug's Life, and she had no line at all. I felt kind of bad for her, actually. She was just standing there. There had no line. Aww. Sorry to Princess Ada. And then I also saw Ariel. Ariel did have a line, and I did wait on a line for Ariel. She had a little bit longer line than some of the other ones, but it was worth it to see her. She was very cute too, because she kept being like, enjoy your legs, when you left, which is so cute. So, all right, then we were at mile 8. Mile 8 was 11:16 split. This is where I actually saw Merida. So like from before, I just waved to her from across the highway. Now I actually saw her and got my photo with her. And then nothing else. And this is mainly because you're running on an overpass back to the main part of the highway. So most of the run is on the overpass here. So they can't really do a lot on the overpass. And at this point too, the sun was rising as well. So it wasn't as dark as it was before. At mile 9, it was an 11:02 split. And this is where I saw the balloon ladies on the other side of the highway. So the balloon ladies are basically the end of the race, so to speak. So they are walking that 16-minute walk. And they say like you get swept by the balloon ladies. So if you cannot keep up with the balloon ladies, they have a few buses and a few vans that essentially they ask you to go in the bus or van and they take you back to like the starting/finishing line at Epcot. And it just means you don't finish the race. So I know it's very disheartening for a lot of people that do get swept, especially when you've worked so hard to do these races. And it means a lot. You spent a lot of money to do these races too. You didn't even get, especially like if you're being swept at that point, you didn't even make it to Magic Kingdom, which is really hard to like, again, spend all that money to go through Magic Kingdom and then not be able to get to Magic Kingdom. And I did see a few people get swept too as I was running past them. I realized that they were being asked to like go on the bus. So I do know that is very hard. And I also know as well that there's a lot of controversy over like if you should get the medal at the end or not. I think if you paid for the race, I think you still get the race medal. But if you paid for the challenge race, you do not get the challenge medal if you do not finish the race.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like controversy with that just because you pay for the medal, part of your registration is paying for that medal. So some people are like, that's like paying for a product and then them just not giving you the product. Whereas others are saying it's like, well, you didn't earn the medal though. Like that's the whole point of doing the race is earning the medal. And others is like, but I paid for it though. So it's like, I should still at least get the medal even if I didn't finish the race. Like I paid money for it. So it's like, where does that money go? I say in quotes, so to speak, if you don't get the medal. I don't really know. I don't think there's a perfect answer to that. I think everyone's going to have a different opinion on it, but it is what it is. I'm not really sure. I would say if you don't finish the race and you really want the medal, I'm sure you could probably argue with them enough for them to give you the medal at least, just so you have like the keepsake of it. But yeah, I'm not really sure. But it was always crazy when you do see the balloon ladies though. So all right. So also in mile 9, I saw Jafar. Jafar was really far away from the camera for some reason. Like when you look at the photo, he was like on a hill. You walk up this hill and you're like 10 feet, 20 feet away from the camera people. My photo on my phone looks ridiculous because we're so far away. And I'm like, why were we so far away? And Jafar was the only one that was crazy far away from the cameras. I have no idea. Maybe it's because he was so tall. They're trying to get better angles of him. I'm not sure. And then I also saw the old evil queen from Snow White, like the one who offers her the apple. So I saw her too. She also had no line, funny enough, but there were a lot of people running towards her as I was running towards her and I got there first. so I think I was the start of the line, so to speak, but it was cool to see her. And she was basically right at mile 10. My mile 10 split was 10:59 and there was no characters in mile 10. Absolutely nothing at all. And this is partially because you're running up an overpass to kind of run over and around over to the overpass. It was at this mile that I was really looking forward to the end of the race at mile 10. I was like, I'm really feeling it. Like I'm getting tired. Like I still have 3 miles left on the highway. And at this point at mile 10, you have 3 hills left as well. So you have the overpass that you're going up the hill for. They do have a comedian on this hill. Every time I've run this race, they've always had like a different comedian on this hill that is entertaining, but you're still running up a hill nonetheless. And then you get over, so then you like run up the overpass. It kind of goes down a little bit and then there's another hill that you have to run back up. And then that is when you hit mile 11. My mile 11 split was 9:55. And then I did see 2 sets of characters here. I saw Joy and Sadness, so I got a photo with them. And I also saw Jessie as well. And Jessie is right before you get to the final hill. So, and then that's a really sharp right turn as well. You basically are running like almost in a 180 to a certain extent. So I saw Jessie, got a photo with her. And then you do the final hill. You're running up that hill because you're basically running up. It's actually an exit from Epcot. It's like in real life, like you couldn't drive into the park on this road. So you run up the hill, run down it, and the end of that hill right outside of Epcot is mile 12. My mile 12 split was 11:19. So we enter Epcot kind of by where the Finding Nemo ride is, sort of in that area. So you enter through Finding Nemo and then you just kind of run up. You don't go all the way up to Figment. You kind of cut across over, I forget exactly what it's called, the Communicore Plaza. So you kind of run across that. You run in front of the Epcot, like the World Celebration kind of center. Then right outside of Connections, I thought at this point there'd be no more characters personally. I don't know why I thought that, but there weren't. There were 2 more characters left. Right outside of Connections Eatery, I saw Elsa and Anna and they had the fake snow going, which I thought was really funny. And then once you leave the park and then once you leave Epcot, it's so funny because at this point, it's like from when you leave Epcot to the finish line, I swear it's like 10 more minutes. It's like, in reality, it's maybe only like 5 minutes, but like you're running through the back ends of Epcot for so long. You're like, where am I going? What is going on?
When's the end of the race?
It's very unfamiliar. Like, yeah, you don't know where the end of the race is because you're very close though, obviously. But this is where I saw Mrs. Incredible. I wonder if they had other Incredible characters, but I saw Mrs. Incredible and she was the last character for me. And then as you're getting close to the actual finish line and there's cast members being like, you're so close to the finish line. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not there yet. Like, where is it? It's like, you're just waiting to see it. And then there's a choir. They always have some kind of high school choir or something like that there. And I was wondering where the choir was going to be. So there was the choir that was at the very end, which is really cool to see them. Then you pass mile 13. My my split for that was 10:36, and the photo pass people were right there as you're rounding last corner, and that's actually where my mom was as well.
Right,
I didn't know you were there.
Yeah,
so.
I was screaming, but you didn't hear me.
No, I didn't know because
I texted to let you know, but you didn't get it in time.
I didn't see the text. Yeah. So from your point of view, and then I finished the race. So then you run over the finish line. I finished with a 2:27:22, so 2 hours 27 minutes 22 seconds with a 10:56 pace, and I crossed the finish line just before 7:30 in the morning. So this is not my fastest half marathon. Obviously, I stopped a lot to take photos, but let's go back to see. So after you saw me at the Contemporary, what did you guys do?
Well, then I had to run to the finish line.
Yeah.
So I was doing a power walk to the finish line. You still beat me to the finish line, but a power walk to the finish line and then into that big area where you were, where I had to find Daddy and Ted.
Well, first you guys took the monorail right over. So.
Oh, you mean like start from Oz?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what happened is Daddy and I got up. We didn't want to wake Ted up because we didn't know what he was doing, so I didn't text him or anything. We were going to go downstairs and get coffee. And as we're going out into the hallway, there's Ted coming out because he was going to go try to find where he had the map and knew where you were. So we said, okay, well, instead of getting coffee, we'll go with you. And that's how we all went out and tried to sneak in where we tried to get to see you.
Yeah.
And then after that, Ted went up to take a shower and get ready. Daddy and I were already ready. We get up very early. So we were ready. We sat in the lobby and just had coffee and danishes from the cart. And then we got on the monorail. Quick, like you said, you go up there, it's, people just going over to go to the race mostly. Some people were actually starting, I think, to go to the transportation center to go to the parks.
Yeah, to get ready for Magic
To get ready for the early opening. But it was really simple. You get on the monorail, it's half empty. You go on the monorail, it takes you where you have to go. Like you said, there's signs telling you where to go. We walked over and just followed everybody going towards that area. We had to go behind. They do have a setup with a stand, bleachers. The first time Amanda did a race, we paid to sit on those bleachers and get water and a whole bunch of other stuff, which we never got, but it was not worth it. At the point when you come over that finish line, it doesn't pay because you can stand, you can always find a spot by the fence right when you come through that finish line to take the picture. Because once you come through that finish line, you keep going. So at that point, you have to keep going too. Like we had to get down off those bleachers and start walking because then we met you in that big area that had there's more places to take pictures.
It's like the large like post-race area.
Yeah, they have tables, they have all the places selling
they have like
food.
booths and
they were selling merchandise, they were selling all that kind of stuff. It's a big area, so it was kind of hard to find everybody. But we did. It was no big deal. We found everybody. By that time, the sun was up.
Oh yeah, it's
so by that time
so.
It was already the sun was up. It was still cool, but the sun was coming up, so everybody was kind of just hanging out. It was not a bad deal. So coming as a spectator when you stay in a Disney hotel is just as easy because we don't have to worry about getting on a bus or getting transportation to Epcot. We just got on the monorail, took us over there, and then we just hung out until until you were ready to come through the finish line.
Yeah, no, for sure. So after I crossed the finish line, I think you got the water bottle first, and then they hand you the medal. It's like wrapped in plastic. You also passed the Powerade tables, like every color Powerade in the world, honestly. So you can pick what color you want.
I saw those as I was walking. Yeah.
So I got my blue Powerade, and then there is a separate tent that you go through to get the challenge medal. So if you're doing like the 10K and the half marathon, you can get your challenge medal through that. If not, you just go through like the snack tent essentially, and they give you a little snack box. In the past, I've gotten Disney race snack boxes that were kind of lacking. Honestly, there was like nothing great in them. But this one had a lot of great stuff. They had tortilla chips and like a little cheese dip in it. They had a fruit roll up, like an actual on-brand fruit roll up. They had this little toast thing. They had an on-brand Stroop waffle. They had a little packet of Skittles, and they also had a wet nap as well. Because a lot of people will do their race and then go straight into the park as well. And so in the past, I feel like I've gotten like, kind of boring stuff. But this one was like, oh, this is not too bad actually. I actually ate some of those things in there. And they also, of course, had bananas. So many bananas, honestly. So I didn't take any of the bananas. So all right, so overall, I counted, and there were 23 official characters to meet during the race. And this is not including Minnie and Mickey on that like little stand that you can meet. I got photos with 18 of the opportunities, missing out on 5 of them, which was Moana, the fairies from Sleeping Beauty, Daisy, Donald, and Goofy, with Moana being the only one I'm sad I did not get a photo with. I would have liked a photo with Moana. And my favorite part was that I liked entering through the park through the Grand Floridian Walkway, because I think the build up to the park is much better and through that, because you're actually walking on a real walkway that's meant to take you to Magic Kingdom, whereas just running on the highway that people just drive on that is not meant to take you necessarily to Magic Kingdom. Right. So I really liked running on that walkway. I will say there are parts of the walkway that is very narrow, and there are parts where it's like a bridge, so you're like running over a bridge. And some of the bridges I was like, wow, it's like, is this bridge going to collapse? Because there's a lot of us pounding our feet on this bridge.
A lot of buses and cars go over that bridge.
Yeah, but you do go into the bridge, and I also feel like we had more time in the park because of that as well, because I feel like the build up to the park was more. I feel like we spent more time in the park. So for instance,
they probably cut off some time because you didn't have to go through the highway.
Well, we went through the highway afterwards is what it is. I think before that walkway just didn't exist, so you just in general spent more time like on the highway. So the walkway again felt more interesting than it was just always on like the roads. But also for this race, you hit the halfway mark right as you leave the Magic Kingdom. So when I looked at the race course of when I ran this in 2023, you didn't hit the halfway mark until way after Magic Kingdom, like a mile after Magic Kingdom, which is very disheartening that you're in Magic Kingdom, you're not even halfway done with the race. So I feel like the way that they adjusted the course this time is that you hit that, like, Magic Kingdom is sort of right before the halfway mark. So right when you're done with Magic Kingdom, you still have half a race to go, but it's not like, before where it's like, well, I still have way more than half a race to go. So I kind of like that as well, that how the course was sort of set up a little bit differently. Although I say that they change the course maps every year anyway, just to keep it interesting, especially for people who do the races every year. So it keeps it interesting for them too. So for this year, I just like the course. I thought it was pretty good. And as I mentioned before, you do have to do a 16-minute mile, which again is a power walk. But again, if you're taking photos or doing anything else, it's like that's just going to eat up on your time. So just keep that in mind. There were bathrooms that are open inside of the park. So for instance, in Magic Kingdom, there were cast members being like, the bathrooms here are open if you want to use like a real bathroom and not a porta potty. But I will say, I've always found the porta potties in Disney races to not be like the worst thing in the world. Like, I have used porta potties. It does happen. It's not the worst thing in the world. And there can be lines for all bathrooms. Like, people always got to go to the bathroom when they're running. So.
Well, yeah, because when we were sitting in the Contemporary lobby having coffee and Danishes in the lobby of the Contemporary Hotel. We had gone over to the cart and just got coffee and Danishes, and we're sitting there. It was a while, like we had seen you go by, whatever. And this girl in this really cute Cinderella costume came through. And when she went to the bathroom and she came out, and I said, "Oh, congratulations." She says, "Oh, I'm not finished. I had to go to the bathroom." And she was going all the way back out to where we met you to go back and join the race to keep on going.
I was saying, people go to lengths to not have to use a porta potty. Good for you. So,
yeah, I thought that was funny. I thought she was done.
Yeah, I actually didn't have to pee this whole race. I felt fine the whole race. I did stop at every single water station and take water. I didn't put that in my notes of where the water stations are, because again, that always changes. But I did take water at every water station. I never skip a water station without taking a little bit of water. So, all right. And then by 10:30, the race is basically wrapped up. So they basically have the race starts at 5 a.m. So you kind of have 5 hours to do the race for the most part, which is a pretty long time for the most part for like a 13, mile race. Because again, a lot of runners will finish between 2 to 3 hours, I would say, with, people who are doing mainly walking the race, or doing lots of photos, like with every single line they have to wait in, unfortunately, maybe have to take the full 5 hours. So by 10:30, the race was basically wrapped up. And that was the race. We ended up going back to the hotel and I showered, and then we'll get into like what we did in Epcot and everything, like, all that stuff in our next episode when we recap the trip itself. But so that was the Princess Half Marathon this year. Overall, good experience.
It went smoothly. I mean, it looks like you had a good time. It was decent weather, thank God.
I would always recommend it. I think it's really fun.
It was decent weather, thank God. And it's always fun because then you get to wear your medal everywhere, and you can talk to like people because people are all wearing their shirts and their medals, and you meet a lot of interesting people because people are willing to talk. Yeah. All you have to say is congratulations and how do you do in the race, and they're like, go on and on and on about this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say too, you definitely don't have to be a runner to do this race. I always say that it's like there's no reason for you to be a runner. A lot of people are just going to walk the race.
You still have to be able to do that.
You have to do the 16-minute walk, but I mean, like, most people I would say can do that to a certain extent. But again, just keep in mind, if you're taking photos, you're not going to make it because, it's like that's just going to use your time up is all. Right. And one thing I forgot to note as well is that if you were for the race itself, usually whoever's hosting that race will not have their character meet and greet until the end of the race in that post-race party. So like Snow White, the Evil Queen, Maleficent, and Aurora were all in the post-race party. So if you're dressed up as Aurora, like you'd see her after the race.
Right at the end when you come in that big circle where everything is. Right.
Yeah. So that was the only thing to note there as well. That it's like we didn't see them on the race course, so they were all opportunities afterwards. And again, that's all I would say free opportunities, but included in your registration that you've already done. You can take the photos with them. I did not take photos with them. I just like they were lying, so I was like, yeah, we're done. We can just go back. Right. I'm all set. So all right, yeah. So that was the race. Anything else you want to add?
No, like I said, I thought it went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, I feel like it always goes smoothly. They're good races.
I just worry that everything goes smoothly because you're watching as we're watching you go through that thing. We watch on their phones to make sure that you're going through your miles and going through your stuff. When you're on the monorail and you look down, you can see all the people running. You can kind of see some of the characters that are there and whatever. So as a spectator, if you're on the monorail, especially, you're riding right over, and some of the runners will be waving as you're going by. We'll be waving down at them and they'll be waving up at us. It is exciting even to be a spectator because you're seeing so much and the characters are there at the end, and people are just so excited. It's just a weekend when people are just happy.
Yeah, no, it's very fun. Yeah. So, all right, let's just get into a little bit of Disney news. So the main Disney news here is just that the Flower and Garden Festival is in full swing right now. So there is the new Moana, Maui, and Pua topiary that's right in the front, which looks super cute. And they also brought back the Phineas and Ferb topiaries from way back when because they're doing a new series for Phineas and Ferb. There is a lot of fun Flower and Garden merchandise as well. And there's some really cute Alice in Wonderland merchandise for the Flower and Garden Festival, which we normally don't see her as part of this festival. So they just kind of brought her in for that. Of course, a lot of Orange Bird stuff because he's like the main character for Epcot and for Flower and Garden. So lots of Orange Bird stuff stuff everywhere. And there are the 2 new booths, the Yacht Grub and the Beach Grub. At the Yacht Grub, they are serving a trio of dips and chips, and one of them has caviar in it. They have a meat assortie, some assorted cheeses, and a sparkling cocktail flight. And at the Beach Grub, they have a new seafood bake. They have a s'mores bar, a grilled corn on the cob, and some coconut water, which I thought was kind of funny. Again, we can't go through all the menus because there's so many menus for Food and Wine, but I thought we'd just highlight those 2 new booths since people were kind of excited to see the 2 new booths there. So, all right. The other thing I thought we would bring up is that Mardi Gras was the other day, and so there was the huge parade at Port Orleans Resort that goes on every year.
Oh, I saw that.
Mardi Gras. It's always a huge hit. It's a very special parade for the people who stay there, especially. So a lot of really cool floats. I would definitely recommend looking up some of those photos because it looks really cool.
It's the cast members who do it, from what I saw. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. The cast members do the float.
And the last but not least here, we just have some more Dino Land news at Animal Kingdom. So it is official that Restaurantosaurus, Dino Bite Snacks, Dinosaur the Ride, and the Boneyard will remain open through 2025. So we have until the end of the year for 2 of those, I
thought it was already down. Oh, okay.
So otherwise, all of the big dino sculptures and all the signs have been removed. So they've all been demolitioned. So it's just, again, the 2 restaurants are like, I guess, Restaurantosaurus and Dino Bite Snacks, the dinosaur ride itself, and the Boneyard. So like the kids play area, those will remain until the end of the year.
Stay open. Okay.
So I would say at the end of the year, probably that's when they'll get taken down and removed. So, they're moving slowly with it, but yeah, kind of sad for some people. So, all right, let's get into some Disney birthdays. First up, actually, they're both on March 10th, funny enough. So March 10th is a big birthday day. First is Bucky Barnes from the Marvel series. So happy birthday to Bucky. And then March 10th is also our friend Taylor's birthday as well. So happy birthday to Taylor. And then this is our final segment of the podcast, our Disney memory. Do you have a Disney memory for today's podcast?
Disney memory. I think the Disney memory is the races. I think getting up early, getting out there, getting excited to see you go by. The first time you did the first full marathon, but even the Princess Marathon, when we came down and made sure we were downstairs to watch you go around that curve and do different things. It's fun. It's just, it brings back memories of just being there and just excited to be doing something special.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember the first marathon race. I was like, I'm not going to take any photos because it was my first marathon in general. So I just wanted to run the marathon. But there were some characters that had no line. So I remember I took a photo with a few people because there was literally no line at all. Like I think I had one of Minnie because there was no line for Minnie. I just walked up to Minnie and took a photo with her. When I did the first Princess Half Marathon, I remember I was like, I want to take photos with every character. Like this is the point to do it. And there was the only character I didn't take a photo with that year was Ray, which was like she was the first one. And the first character always has the longest line. So that's why it's like sometimes skipping the first characters as well. But I realized at this race there were no Star Wars characters. Like they didn't have Ray or like Princess Leia or anything like that. No Star Wars characters. So this is what it is. So
that's why I said the memories are of just being there. Just like, like I said, the schedule, the trying to get where you have to get, going from one place to another, making sure our timing was good with yours. Like when you start thinking back about how you go from one place to another and how exciting it is and how we've lucked out. At least it didn't rain on the race. I mean, the first marathon, it was hot and humid. But thank God the weather has held out.
Yeah, it's like you can't predict the weather, of course. No. And it's one of those things where it's like you just have to decide, like, is it worth it? It's like I do think the races are fun. Like getting up early, I think, is one of the hardest parts of like getting up and then, getting ready to go to the race, running the race.
Keeps telling me that, well, Mom, you could do the 5K because I do power walk. And I was like, I'm not getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't care if I can do the race. It is quite
the experience, like, especially once you get to the race start. It's like there are hundreds of people who do this race, right? Hundreds to thousands of people. So it's not like you're like by yourself. Like if I was getting up by myself to do a 3 a.m. run, it's like, wow, this is pretty early.
It's not as exciting enough for me to do it.
Yeah,
I'd rather stay in bed at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, no, I would say that is the most challenging part is just getting up, especially people who do a lot of the challenge races or do all 3 races. It's just getting up early every morning. I don't know how people do that every morning. But some people love it. They love doing it because it's a very unique experience, I would say. There aren't that many other races, I feel like, who do something similar to this and have all the opportunities. Again, it's an expensive race, but I do think you get a lot for what you're paying for, I would say, overall. So,
that's what I mean. When you say memories, I mean, the memories just flood through because there's so many different things going on. You getting up, you leaving, me, like I woke up and I checked the clock and realized it was right before the race. So I sent, sending you a text and then knowing where you are and knowing where you're coming. It's fun. It brings back a lot of fun memories of being there.
No, for sure. Well, let us know if you ran the Princess Half Marathon, if you're running the Springtime Surprise Race or any of the other Run Disney races. I would love to hear your experience with it. We will have a dedicated Instagram post on our Instagram, Almost Amanda X. So let us know. It's like, what races are you running? Would you run a Run Disney race? Have you always wanted to run a Run Disney race? Maybe you do like the Wine and Dine race in the fall over the Princess Half Marathon and maybe why you choose to do that one instead. But love to know because I would love to run more Run Disney races in the future. Also, make sure you give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. Also on a brand new YouTube channel as well, so make sure you subscribe.